I would like to bring you this gem that I saw, and I have to say it is a great movie. In a way, it speaks directly to the action geek in me. The name of this movie is Tenant, and this is Lockdown Movie Reviews with Colin Dawson. And I just have to say, I cannot believe how good this movie is because of the hype in it, but it lives up to it. You are instantly taken into the world of the movie, and then you are shown 3 or 4 worlds after it throughout the entire situation. And you are a part of the action, and there's a part of a mystery instantly there. And it shows so much with time travel and the intellectual possibilities of it that I just don't know how to really describe it other than it is brain candy for the same time as your adrenal glands are going, wanting to be in this movie in just some way. Kids will play this movie out. People will want this movie. And I will say there is probably a way to make a second part of this movie very easily. It is phenomenal acting. It is confidence seen in a man and everything. Very rarely do you see a man who is shorter than some of the lead women. And there's a couple of them in here that it is absolutely a level of Sean Connery, animal magnetism to just strength of character. Other actors that portray this, like Leonardo DiCaprio and other people like that. This movie is absolutely mind-blowing. And that being said, let me just say this. A government agent is going through a search and save and rescue situation. There is a couple of packages that have to be removed. They get their target out, but they're caught. They're tortured. They're killed. They bite their cyanide pills in some of the most complicated ways you could think of to save themselves during torture. And the next thing that happens is one of them wakes up because they could only save one of the team. And it's a miracle in a way. But he sees this one thing, like all of a sudden this bullet during the rescue, and he remembers it, goes backwards. He's not really there with it. And it's something that's just as odd in the whole situation, but he goes on with his mission. And he's given, when he wakes up, that there is a temporal problem with the world. And there is only one word. And it goes across all known everything. No borders, no anything else. Top level. Beyond anything, even the UN. And he has this one word, tenant, to go and find everything. And basically tracks down some arms dealers. And it's basically they've made technology from the future. They find bits and pieces of things from the future so that they can try and figure out how everything works. Everything works completely backwards. You get a gun from the future, you're catching the bullet and everything. And you have to be able to go in and out of that. And he picks up people that he's already recruited and everything else. And it shows him age a little bit through this, but not really, because he keeps going back and forth in time, so he basically stays the same. And you can just tell that there's a wisdom that comes into his eyes as he moves forward. And he's not as so cocky and everything. And they find this main arms dealer that they have to stop because he has a thing attached to his heart in a way that if he dies, he will be letting loose nuclear weapons, everything else. And they have to put this machine back together. And it looks like a big crankshaft, honestly. And they're taking all the pieces of it and putting it together. And it explains all the science perfectly. You have to have everything from your area. And it is just absolutely wild. It sounds so geeky, but the action keeps you in there. The constant going back and forth through this mechanical device that lets them go through time. And even themselves not being able to tell themselves anything when they're fighting each other. And it truly does come up to the point 2 or 3 times, is yourself really your worst enemy? It is interesting. And at the same time, there is so much that if you're not on this one boat, at the very end of it, in the big battle scene where they're going back in time and everything else to stop this huge, huge situation. And it's the only time they're ever going to be able to kill this one guy, the one main arms dealer, and everything else, and make the world, how do you say, right. Well, they succeed, but at the same time, they lose because they didn't make it back on. Everything's kind of torn asunder just to start over, but there's nothing that can happen in the future. And it goes back and forth throughout everything. And then there's the ending twist that you just have to wait and watch for. And the cinematography, the choreography, the training that they do, the special, everything they do, and the way the effects work is just mind-blowing. And I have to say that if it's not nominated and wins an Academy Award, I can understand why. Because it's just that bit of intellectualism where they're sitting in the boat that's going backwards, and that they have a girl there who's been shot by a bullet that they had to put through, and they're in their own separate oxygen area as they are reverse healing her, going through everything, trying to say how time and everything else works. And if you've seen other time movies, it builds off of that with the newest, latest thoughts and technology and everything, the newest theories. And for someone like me, it is perfect. But I can see why the Academy, because it's so intellectual, and the confidence of dating people, the intellectual everything, the slight hiding and innuendo that comes up when you realize it and you have to see it again. And you go, this is where this guy, the blonde-headed guy, knew. This is where the main character, he knew. This is where this other guy has known more than any of them, and they just go, I thought he was just a regular soldier that was leading things. And all the situations back and forth through there. It is mesmerizing off of it. And I have to say, I would give it every bit of a solid 9 But the only thing that does hold back on this movie, unless you have seen and been familiar with some of like Einstein and Hawking's, I've read three of their books, and watched the movies like Time Cop or some of the others out there with it that come in between there to here. You have to probably have a little bit of a geek chaperone to come through there, and you have to make sure that your brain, because it wants you to ask, and you're like, oh my god, I want to ask about this, I want to know about this, and it's like, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, just keep watching the movie, it's so great, it's so good, and you will be asking, and it is a movie that you can have intellectual thought and concept with, that is after the movie and everything, in a purely academic situation. And for a lot of people I know, that might turn people off to it, but at the same time, I think it's the main thing that turns people on. This is Colin Dawson with Lockdown Movie Reviews. Like and subscribe, and smash that like button.